Our goal is to reduce our atmospheric carbon dioxide parts per million from, we're currently at 390, and we need to get that down to 350, which is the level that scientists say we can live comfortably, or actually that's the maximum sustainable level to live on the Earth. And so we have a lot of work to do, and I'm excited because I had a lot of volunteer help with this, and I feel like it's finally coming together, and a lot of energy. People contacting me through the 350.org website, which is very exciting, hearing from strangers saying, I want to help out with this workday event. We have a local group at Morningside Commons that they actually went to Brown & Roberts that generously donated at a discounted price the insulation tubing so they can insulate their hot and cold water pipes to reduce their energy use. And so those folks over at Morningside Commons in Brattleboro are currently insulating their pipes. So right now I'd like to invite up Dan Freilich. What are your plans for reversing global climate change while in office?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me in the back of the garden? Great. So my name is Dan Freilich. I'm a candidate for the U.S. Senate, currently running as an independent. I'm the gentleman who ran against Senator Leahy in the Democratic primary, so you could summarize and guess that I'm somewhat of an independent Democrat at heart. And frankly, if there's nothing else you remember from the few sentences that I have time to talk about here, it's that the Democrats are not going to get this done, and the Republicans certainly won't. And the only way, in my opinion, that you're going to ever get to 350.org's goals is a consensus between the two, and it's going to require an independent who can get the Republicans on your side. Now, preaching to the choir is easy, and a lot of people like to do that. And in fact, actually, I'm pretty critical of the term green, because we absolutely need a green revolution, but if you think that a green revolution, that terminology is going to get there, you don't understand Americans. Because that's not the way many or most Americans think. You have to make this a red, white, and blue thing. Now, I personally believe that climate disruption, which is the #1 goal of this organization, is the absolute #1 policy priority that needs to be fought for, no matter what your party, and no matter what your economic status, and how you believe. But it doesn't matter what I think, and it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what the rest of the country thinks. And then if the Republicans are fighting tooth and nail and dragging and screaming for every little policy initiative that we want to pass, we'll pass some incremental bill. We'll get a health care bill similar to the one that was passed a few months ago. But in the big scheme of things, nothing will be accomplished that will save the globe and accomplish your goal. The Democratic candidate, Senator Leahy, took $1.5 million just in 2009 and 10 from big special interests. And we're talking about finance and banking and big ag and pharma. We're not talking about Save the Whales or 350.org. The Republican also takes special interest money, and we won't. And I just don't even understand the concept of coming home at night and looking at your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend in the eye, having claimed to represent the people of Vermont, but having that kind of conflict. Now, having said that, what do I think we need to do? I think it's common sense. We need a green or a red, white, and blue revolution in our economy. Now, what does that really mean? A lot of people say that. To me, this is comprehensive legislation with an absolute congressionally, legally codified law that we will be off oil in a certain amount of time. Now, you can negotiate that year, but probably 20 years is reasonable. That we will be off carbon, maybe 5 years later, at 25 years. Now, how do you accomplish this? The only way to accomplish this, in my mind, is that it be comprehensive. It has to be real, and it has to be full. So CAFE standards, you can't say we're going to have CAFE standards that will go up 3%. It won't make a difference. We need 60, 70 MPG within 5 or 10 years. In terms of oil importation, oil is illegal to import in 20 years. Mass transit. Why does the United States of America have the least modern mass transit system and intercity rail in every city and between every city? We need to invest, and this is not billions, this is trillions. If you don't hear the word T, then this is an incrementalist who doesn't truly understand the problem. We need mandates, we need tax incentives, we need tax disincentives, we need feebates. Now, the current Senate bill, which as you know is defunct, but the Democratic Party, and remember, we're the ones who are fighting for this, says that we are going to go down by 17% from 2005 numbers for CO2 emissions in 10 years, 1.7% per year. This is ridiculous. This is going to make no difference. Bill Maher had a recent great joke. He was referring to how in the olden days, America actually did things. When John F. Kennedy said we're going to go to the moon, he said we're going to the moon. And a few years later, we were on the moon. He didn't say over 20 years we'll go a quarter of the way to the moon. So it has to be definitive, and that's actually how Americans accomplish things. The second thing's about the current Senate bill, which the Democratic Party has written and advocates for. It expands nuclear power, and it expands offshore oil. I think that is ridiculous, and I think if I was a religious person, I would think that God made a joke with the recent BP thing and said, hey, look, they're going to expand nuclear power and offshore drilling, so we're going to have an accident happen. This can't occur. And I think that that kind of incrementalism is not going to work. The final point about the current bill, cap and trade is all great in theory, but it is so ripe for abuse. And it's an easy way out for politicians. Just like saying, I want campaign finance reform in one hand, but in the other hand, continuing to take money. A carbon tax, in my opinion, is the only open, fair, and progressive way to do this. You have to incentivize good behavior, and you have to do it in a way that's transparent. And there's no way, in my mind, that's more transparent than for people to understand what the cost of carbon is. So one of the questions you have is how to pay for this, and the way I would pay for this is twofold. Number one, a carbon tax. And number two, we need much, much more progressive taxation, such that the wealthy will be paying a lot more in America if I was able to get the tax policy that I would want initiated, which is a return to progressive income tax, make payroll taxes be just like progressive income taxes, and make capital gains be just like other taxes. These are loopholes for the rich. Everybody knows it, and this is why we have such a disparity between the middle class and the wealthy. And these are fixable issues. I can't guarantee that I can get it accomplished, but we can at least try. I thank you very much for listening. If anybody wants more information, www.danielfreilich4ussenate.com. We have some information over there, and any volunteers who want to get involved would be very much appreciated. Thanks.
So next up we have Jeanette White, would like to come up and answer our questions today.
As Jessica said, I am currently one of the two senators from Windham County and running again. I am running on the Democratic Party and proud of it. So what we've done over the past in the state, because we have obviously less far-reaching influence than what Daniel was talking about, but what we've done is and I'll continue to work in this direction, is I just made some notes here because I'm likely to forget things. We've made money available through loans and grants. In Bennington, for example, we just opened a new office building that is heated by geothermal, and it was a pretty big investment, but it'll pay off in the end. Renewable energy loans and grants for research and development and for businesses. Efficiency standards for appliances and vehicles. We just last year dealt with the issue of commercial composting and how that would work and how we can promote that in the state without. There's a lot of issues around commercial composting and what it really means and whether it should be done on farms or off farms, and we've dealt with that, I think, fairly effectively. We continue to do it. Public transportation. We're trying to put more money into public transportation, and when we do put money into transportation projects, the goal is to make sure that we're not just addressing the vehicular transportation, but pedestrians, motorcycles, scooters, other forms of transportation other than just gas-powered vehicles. Tax credits, we've promoted local agriculture because I think that's a huge effort in reducing the climate change. The producing and consuming goods locally so that you don't have to have the huge transportation getting them from place to place. I would say that one of the major things that we did is vote to not approve the continued operation of Vermont Yankee after 2012. I know that there are some who say that that is clean energy. I dispute that because we have the mining of the uranium and then we have the waste to deal with afterwards. And I think that many of our opponents are basing their entire, Republican opponents, are basing their entire candidacy on the continued operation of Vermont Yankee, and that where we might differ in degree on some of the issues, we differ very radically on that issue. And I just want to point out here that, because I doubt that there will be anybody here for the in the position of lieutenant governor or governor. Oh, I think Emily's here, but for governor, yes. I want to point out that the Republican nominee or candidate for lieutenant governor has the worst environmental voting record in the entire Senate. I just thought I'd point that out. It doesn't have anything to do with my candidacy. And another thing I'll tell you is there's a constitutional amendment on the ballot, and it would allow 17-year-olds to vote if they'll be 18 by the time of the election. And if we want to do anything to change the direction we're going around our climate, we need to get young people involved, and this is a great way to do it. And they're concerned about it. We old fogies tend to think we won't be around much longer anyway, so, but they're here and they're concerned. So, thanks.
Peter Galbraith is going to answer our questions next. And Peter, you want to stand in the middle of the sign? So the first question, what will you do while in office to address the global climate crisis?
Jessica, thank you so much for putting together this event. And I'd like to, I'm Peter Galbraith from Townsend. I'm Jeanette's running mate. We're running together for the Vermont Senate. I'm the other Democratic nominee. And I'd like to say a word about my background on these issues. I began my career teaching at Windham College in Putney, and as some may remember, it went bankrupt in 1978. And like many young people, I couldn't find a job here, so I went to Washington, where I joined the staff of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee as one of the junior staff people. And as such, my portfolio included international environmental issues, because they were really thought of as very obscure, very unimportant issues, including by the environmental movement, which basically thought of the environment as an entirely national issue. And just to give you a sense of the time, in 1982, I thought of and wrote up an amendment to the foreign aid bill in which to create a program in which we would help countries conserve biological diversity, because the rate of extinctions was and continues to be alarming, global warming contributing to this. Headline of the amendment was biological diversity. Claiborne Pell, who was a real champion of this, a Rhode Island senator, offered it. And Jesse Helms, you may remember him, very right-wing senator from North Carolina, he looked at it, and it was clear that he was opposed to it, deeply concerned, because he thought biological diversity referred to certain romantic practices by people that he didn't like, if you get my drift here. And so once we explained that it really was about animals and not interaction between humans and animals, but about saving animals, he was on board. We got it enacted, and that legislation, Section 119 of the Foreign Assistance Act, over the ensuing years, $500 million has been spent, and I think probably saved some species. I also was the person who shepherded through the ratification of the Montreal Protocol. For those of you who don't remember, this is the contributing to the hole in the ozone layer. That was really the big issue then. We got it through. Wasn't easy. And it has made an enormous difference. That hole is, I think it's closed actually, or anyhow, much reduced. There was a time when the entire Antarctica, there was a hole in the ozone layer, very dangerous. And the reason I mention it, in addition to talking about my own record, the reason I mention it is that it demonstrates that cooperative international action works. I also was involved in the very first Senate resolution in the 1980s on the subject of global warming, which was thought of as a very obscure point with Senator Biden, now the Vice President. What about here in Vermont? The first point, of course, is that we're a very small state. We're a very small part of the problem, which has to be addressed globally, but we must do our part. And I endorse everything that Jeanette White said in terms of transportation, well, everything that she said. Certainly the point that was we look at transportation, not just automobiles, but train, bicycle, pedestrian. One of the programs, when I think about energy conservation, this will be my last point, when we think about energy conservation, we have to think about the priority should be the things that are going to have the fastest payback. And that happens to be a coincidence of money, fastest payback in money, and fastest payback in terms of carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases. And the fastest payback is in conservation. It's also a form of, if you will, new energy, which has no negative environmental consequences. I mean, wind, there are issues of, I'm for it, but there are issues of siting. Solar is also good, but it's expensive. But conservation has the fastest payback, and there is a program that Brattleboro is considering, some other towns have, that we ought to be supporting. It's the PACE program. And it deals with this very simple problem. If you're a homeowner, and this ought to be extended to businesses, you typically will only make an improvement in energy efficiency, a major capital improvement in your home, if you think you're going to be in the home for the life of the payback period. So if it's going to take, if you can save $1,000 a year with an improvement, and the improvement's going to cost $10,000, you will only make that improvement if you're sure you're going to be in that home for 10 years, and frankly, most people don't have that kind of time horizon. The reason is that an improvement in energy efficiency does not add to the value of the home, because people don't see it. By an assessment on your property tax, which would go to the next purchaser of the property. It is a very good idea. It's very consistent with all sorts of special assessments, sidewalks, lights in certain districts. It is a program that I think is of great importance and one that I will promote. And with that, recognizing that this is a wonderful audience, but probably one that you can talk to individually as well, I won't prolong the discussion, but thank you very much. I have some brochures if anybody's interested.
Thank you, Peter. So Emily Payton is coming on up. I do have to say that at 11:30, which is in 5 minutes, you will be cut off by the ringing of the Center Congregational Church bells. They have agreed to ring the bells. The number of parts per million of carbon dioxide we need to reduce in our atmosphere currently, so we need to go from 390 down to 350. So I believe they're going to be ringing the bells 40 times. I'm not quite sure how long that's going to take, but if you don't mind a little intermission of your talk, or you can wait 5 and do the whole thing together. No. Okay. So Emily Payton's running for governor here in Vermont. And so your first question, Emily, what will you do while in office to address the global climate crisis?
Yes. May I first say that I'm applying for the job. rather than running, or it's not a horse race. And I'm very glad that the bells will be ringing because we have some serious spiritual questions to address. Primarily, we haven't been talking today, that I've heard yet, about the war on terror and its relationship to global warming and our responsibility to stand up where laws have been made that are in essence illegal. There are some laws that send our Green Mountain boys over to fight a war without an end game. So the reason I've entered this race is not to foil Peter Shumlin, and I do remind people that when Peter Shumlin was for nuclear power, I was organizing a 10-town vote to show that the area didn't want nuclear power. If we want to change the direction of climate change, we need to go to how we are going to fund it and what we are funding right now in terms of funding endless war. And when I follow that path, I go to Wall Street. And the proposals I make are to empower Vermonters to have more money to do the things we know we have to do. And I believe here in Vermont we have a handle on more of the things that we should do. And to remove that money from Wall Street, which is in essence the corporate war game. I've watched the Democrats and the Republicans continue to enable war, and they have done so at our peril. That is why I want us to create a state bank, like it's done in North Dakota. North Dakota is the only state with job and income growth because it created a bank in 1919 after the Federal Reserve. Without going into the history of the Federal Reserve, you can either call me or go to my website, which is vermontforward.com. I was an impeachment activist, and when I went up to the House, and Gay Symington, who was a Democrat, who encouraged the House to vote it down, that meant we couldn't impeach George Bush in time to stop more war. And if we get either Doobie or Shumlin in, there's another war ready to roll out. Now what we need to do is to create a monetary industry that benefits Vermont and that disempowers corporate warfare. Then we will have the money to invest in, I believe, the best way we can deal with carbon is to have many small organic farms, have small organic plots on every house, because that way we will honor the earth. Is that the bells? Only 2 bells? Okay, there's 3. Well, with each bell stroke, can we envision a better Vermont, a peaceful Vermont? If we have a Vermont unit of exchange, we will have more abundance. People won't be working for a slave wage. What would that look like in Vermont? If people, everybody had a livable wage. What would it look like if we could make the loans for the things we want to see, and the interest would come back to Vermont instead of to Wall Street? What would it look like if we weren't sending $1.5 billion to the federal government to continue we are all very small, but in a way we're integral. We need to call war what it is. It's acts of mental illness and insanity, and we need to stand up against it and disempower it. We need to stop sending money to it. Our Democratic Congress hasn't done that. That's why I'm an independent. That's why I'm not accepting, I refuse donations, and I refuse party affiliation. And Peter Shumlin, he could reach out and ask to hire me just to do the banking part. He hasn't done that yet. So I'm going to stay and work right through the election cycle and go to schools and teach about what money is and what money isn't. And what we have is an abuse of money. Money is only to exchange, make exchanges happen for the benefit of people. It shouldn't be used for the power over people. And the ways I have, we can return more money to Vermont to get the things done that we want to do. And all the things Jessica is doing, I want to have done. So thank you very much. My name is Emily Payton, and take it away. Thank you.
Emily Payton would like to add one more thing before she takes off for the day. And up next is Molly Burke.
What I wanted to add is income. I didn't finish the thought about how organic farming and organic gardens is correlated to carbon sequestration. And that is why there's a lot of means within our reach to deal with it. We have something called biochar. How many people here have heard of biochar? So what biochar is, this wonderful stuff. It's actually charcoal that they found out in the Amazon. And when it's put into the soil, into the topsoil, it holds the nutrients for longer. And then what happens with that type of soil, the carbon is sequestered. It comes and is held within the soil. Right now we have about 50% depletion of our topsoil across the earth. That could change very, very quickly if we began practices of including biochar in organic farming and in small garden plots, which of course are much more productive than the factory farms. So insofar as you can use your dollars to disempower factory farming and buy local organic farms, if we could have an organic garden in every household, we would be sequestering carbon. And it's the simplest, quickest way without laws that we can do that. And I really wanted to make that clear. Biochar is being developed in northern Vermont. You can look it up. It's really exciting because we can do it. We don't need the politicians. We can just do it. So I did want to make sure that you all knew that. And thank you. The future is actually bright.
Thank you, Emily. So up next is Molly Burke, who is currently our local representative.
Thank you for inviting me, and I know this is a dedicated group, and I think that a lot of people here represent a lot of other people who aren't here. So first of all, I just want to say that I've been concerned about this issue for about 20 years, and starting to read about it and starting to notice the changes in our winters, and it always seemed like, okay, you know, we will solve this problem, and now it's actually really becoming very noticeable, something I'm very concerned about. It was one of the things that contributed to my wanting to run for office, and I also was one of the things that led to my requesting to be on the Transportation Committee. Can everyone hear me? To be on the Transportation Committee, because in Vermont, 44% of Vermont's greenhouse gases come from the transportation sector, because we are an automobile-dependent kind of state because of the rural nature and dispersed settlement. So what will I do while in office to address global climate crisis? I have been working on the Transportation Committee to try to promote better public transportation, a national conference on rural public transportation in Burlington. I'll be spending 2 days on that, and I know that there will be a lot more ideas about how we can better become a more user-friendly public transit state. How will programs be funded? That's a really good question. I think a lot of it has to do with leadership and how we're going to allocate state dollars. I think we need new leadership in the governor's office in order to take this crisis seriously. And I think that I'm going to talk a little bit about citizen action at the end, but I think that citizen action is something that really will help to push dollars in the right direction. And there are a lot of things we can do that don't require a lot of money, like enforcing no idling. No idling. I know the state actually has a transportation plan, a climate change transportation plan. It needs to be implemented. The state has a climate change plan. It's sort of been a little bit in the backdrop, and it needs to come into the foreground. How do you propose to transition from fossil fuels to clean renewable energy? I know the legislature, and I voted for it, did pass a standard offer legislation that was incentivizing clean energy, renewable energy. We need to do more of that. And what have I already done in office? I think I talked about that. And actually, out of office, right now, I organized an art exhibit down at Amy's Bakery down the street, and I invited a number of artists, I'm a visual artist, to contribute work that addresses this issue, because I really believe that art has a way of saying things that words don't. And so that's one thing that I've been doing sort of outside the legislature. I also organized 2 exhibitions prior to this in 2006 and 2007. Also, I guess I want to say that I've been promoting, and actually everybody on our transportation committee delegation was able to secure some federal stimulus funding to upgrade the rail service in Vermont and make it more accessible to people. Also, there's some other legislation that's going on that I hope people will know about, and it's being pushed by AARP, and it's called Complete Streets legislation. I'm very much behind that. And that is to make transportation, when you're doing any new transportation project, has to take into account not only automobiles, but bicyclists, pedestrians, public transit, to make the transportation system, which is paid for by public dollars, accessible to all taxpayers, not just people who drive a car. And I'd like to end by just talking a little bit about the value of citizen action. I worked on a bill this year about bicycle safety, and my first session of the legislature, 2009, there was a bill that came before the legislature, and no one on the committee supported it, and everybody said that bill's going nowhere. It's not going to happen. And it came up again this year, and the Bicycle Pedestrian Coalition in Vermont got about 300 people to send emails to our committee, and all of a sudden there was a buzz around the State House, and people are saying, oh, do you know anything about this? And people are contacting their legislators, and the upshot of that is that the bill actually passed the legislature. It didn't require any money, that helped, but it did require that kind of citizen pressure to get that bill out of committee and passed. So I really want to encourage everyone to, you sometimes think, oh, I'm just one voice. Contact your legislators, contact your local representatives and your representatives to Congress. Even though you know that they support your policies, it helps for them to say, you know what, I've got X number of constituents who've been writing me about this. They're behind this. It's not just my idea. So I just want to encourage everybody, and also I think the whole idea of hope, it's really easy to sort of lose that, and that is the thing that we must hold on to. You never know how fast things are going to change when you have the right conditions. And I think all of these events contribute to that. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. And thank you to Jessica, who's done a tremendous amount of work on this issue. Oh, I also want to say that my parents are here today from Buffalo, New York. Nice. Molly and Carl Cloutier. Welcome. And I'm very pleased that they're here.
So organizers of the 350.org event in Brattleboro, Vermont, we wanted to give oil companies the opportunity to share their views on global climate change. BP was actually the only one to step forward, but since that company's representatives are overwhelmed with the sheer number of 350.org events that are happening all over the world today, we received a written statement, which I'll share with you. And accompanying the statement in the mail was a smiley face and this graph, which we'll be showing. The human population has benefited greatly from the discovery of oil and its subsequent pumping from the earth. You can clearly see from this graph that the number of people increased in step with world oil production. The BP motto of maximize profit at any cost has led to some cutting-edge ideas for the future. As world oil supplies decline, so will the human population. What is to become of all of those wasted human carcasses? At BP, we have developed a method by which we can transform human bodies into biofuel, thus avoiding millions of dead bodies lying around everywhere, creating a health hazard. Increased food production through pesticide and herbicide use has led to not only an increase in number of people, but the girth of those people. BP developers said, let's tap into the fat stores of human beings to use as an alternative fuel when oil in the ground becomes too expensive to harvest. People will be all too eager to give up their fat for free. It will be reminiscent of the whale blubber extractions of yesteryear. Remember the BP motto, if you smile enough, the troubles of the world will drift away.
As part of the 350.org Global Work Party on 10-10-10, the neighbors at Morningside Commons, where I live, it's a condominium complex south of Brattleboro, and we went together and bought bulk insulation for our hot water pipes. And the local hardware store here, Brandon Roberts, gave us a 33% discount because there were 37 units ordering in bulk. So it came out really good for us, and it's very simple to do. Could I have a volunteer up here to show you how simple it is? Here's a 3/4 inch hot water pipe, which is like most of the hot water pipes in Morningside. And this handy dandy insulation is made for 3/4 inch pipes. And so you just snap it on and just fit it right around there. And then if you have lots of twists and bends in your pipes, you just cut the insulation at a 45-degree angle so that it's mitered and so that two corners of the insulation fit together, and you wrap some tape around it, and that way you can cover all your pipes, whether you know, however way they turn. And the important thing is to insulate the first 6 feet of the hot water that's coming out of your hot water heater, and to insulate the last 3 feet of the cold water that's going into your hot water heater. And then we also have baseboard hot water furnaces in our condos, so we also, some of us are insulating those as well. But what I've noticed is that I turned the heat down on my hot water heater, and even though I turned the hot water down, once I insulated, the water in my shower seems to be just as hot as it was before I turned the hot water down, and it heats up a lot faster. There's not a long time that there's cold water running in the bathtub before the hot water heats up. So that was a fun, simple, and very happy thing that we did today in Morningside.
This is our 10-10-10 presentation for 350.org, and this display here is about worm towers and how to bring nutrients into your garden without having to dig up the soil every summer. And so how the worm tower works is you put your compost into the tower, and it rests in the soil, and the red wiggler worms that are used in gardens that work faster than the regular brown worms, they move through the tower, taking the compost out into the soil that needs the nutrients, and they do their work all summer. Your garden grows, and then in the winter they rest with the soil, and it all begins again the next year. And so all you have to do is keep putting the compost in every time it gets low, and the garden takes care of itself. It's a good use in permaculture gardens or in flower gardens, all different kinds. And this is an example of an actual worm tower. They come in all different sizes. You can have really small ones for smaller gardens, or you could use small ones throughout your garden in different areas to distribute the compost more evenly. We also have large ones that are 2 feet in diameter. And what I did as an artist, because I prefer things to be aesthetically pleasing, and I know that other people share that value in their gardens, is while I was having dinner with my dad one night, I painted one of the worm towers. The materials that these are made out of, this is PVC piping, and this is just some, I think plywood, that they just cut the bottom out, screwed the round part into the top so that it wouldn't fall off. And I use acrylic paint because it stands up to the weather really well. And I sanded down the piping so that the paint would adhere better to the pipe. It wouldn't come off with the weather necessarily.
My name is Jim Guckenberger, and I'm here with a permaculture info table at the 350.org work party in Brattleboro on October 10th, 2010. Basically, what I'm trying to do here is share some of the ideas that I've learned over the years about permaculture and sustainable agriculture and sustainable living. Permaculture is a system of interrelated concepts and ideas that all revolve around maximizing efficiency and maximizing connections between humans and their ecosystems, and inside of ecosystems as well. And the biggest concept, I think, in permaculture is about recognizing systems of connection and understanding how those systems work and taking advantage of them. There's a lot in permaculture systems about maximizing efficiency to reduce labor input, and that has a huge impact on fossil fuels based economies by reducing the reliance on outside inputs of fuel and labor, and basically relying on natural flow and the natural cycles and rhythms of input and output to basically run a system without having to put tons of energy into a system to make it work, the way that we do with industrialized agriculture today. Permaculture is also a way of understanding societies and how people relate to one another. The biggest example, I suppose, of social permaculture would be gathering wisdom from the people who live in a community and sharing that wisdom in just large sort of council settings where people can get together, like people are getting together today, to share wisdom and work together on projects that improve the health and happiness of the community. This gathering today is an example of the social aspect of permaculture, but we're also trying to demonstrate some of the ideas and concepts behind the food production aspect of permaculture, because it did start out as a system or a form of agriculture, and it's sort of grown beyond that over the years to include all different areas of life. Touching any one aspect or any one branch of permaculture practice means taking part in a whole system of interrelated ideas that all sort of operate under the same umbrella. So we're trying to give people who maybe don't know a lot about permaculture, maybe they've never heard of it at all, or maybe they know a lot about it and practice it, but could always use like another way to look at it. And that's sort of what we're trying to do here today. I took a permaculture design class this summer and got really passionate about it, and a lot of the ideas I'm presenting here today I learned in that class. but a lot of them are also just common sense ideas that because people have been trapped in this idea of requiring outside inputs of energy to make systems work, they don't always realize that compost is something that just happens on its own. Plants reseed themselves, perennial plants come back year after year. You don't need to put a ton of energy and a ton of time into maintaining a backyard garden. It'll just take care of itself if you design it with just a little bit of care and attention towards how nature works in rhythms and cycles. You can search on the internet for permaculture, but also the best way to find information about how permaculture works is to just start observing natural rhythms and systems in your everyday life without having to use heavy machinery or a rototiller or a pitchfork or anything to till the soil up and dig up the grass and turn it into a garden space. What you do is you take newspaper or cardboard and wet it down really thoroughly with a garden hose or buckets of water or something like that, and you lay it down over the patch of grass that you want to use. You just lay it right over top of the grass. You don't need to mow it, you don't need to till up any soil or anything. Lay it right down over top of the grass, and then you pile on topsoil and home compost, composted down manure, any kind of like soil compost type stuff that you have access to. You pile it on about 1 or 2 inches thick. Cover all of the cardboard or newspaper completely, and then you take lawn clippings, leaves, wood chips, small twigs, anything that you have just lying around your yard, and pile it on top really thickly, really heavily. The thicker the better, 6 to 8 inches of leaves and lawn clippings and wood chips. Just pile it on really heavily, and then you water the whole thing down with a garden hose. Really soak it really heavily so that the mulch stays where it is and doesn't blow away in the wind. And then you do this in like the late summer or fall. Even in the late fall, when you have tons of leaves lying around, you can rake them all into one area and just turn one part of your lawn into a garden bed. And over the winter, it'll break down. The cardboard and newspaper will break down into the soil. The grass underneath it will die off and rot and decay into the soil. And in the springtime, you'll have a garden bed. One thing that a lot of people these days are really concerned about, and it's really feeding a lot of the growth of the organic food movement, is concern over the use of chemicals in farming. Chemical pesticides and herbicides and chemical fertilizers, and especially the use of genetically modified plants. Permaculture completely shuts all that out. There's no use of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, no use of genetically modified plants, and basically permaculture strives to replicate natural systems as much as possible, which means not even using hybridized crops as much. And basically, there's no real need to use hybridized crops if you select heirloom varieties that are hardy enough to a particular environment or are native to a particular region that have beneficial aspects that help them to flourish in even a really difficult climate, in a really difficult microclimate. Chemical pesticides destroy plant and insect systems. You don't just kill the insects that you want to kill, you kill all insects when you use pesticides. Insects are amazingly important to plant systems and to all systems, including human systems. Insects help to fertilize the land by pollinating plants and also pollinating weeds, which in turn gather nutrients from the soil and provide all kinds of amazing amazing benefits. Insects are pollinators. They pollinate plants, and without pollinating insects, plants would not grow. And our food system would collapse. We're seeing this with the bee colony collapses that have been happening for the past 10 or 15 years or so, and it's spreading to other classes of insects as well. If we overuse pesticides and kill off insect populations, eventually food will no longer grow naturally. Permaculture recognizes this, and instead of using pesticides to control insect populations, they allow insect populations to flourish and increase the rate of pollination and cross-pollination, and it produces much healthier crops. Herbicides kill anything that they're sprayed on. Permaculture does not use herbicidal treatments. Instead, they use really innovative techniques such as interplanting. Interplanting is a way of planting plants together that have different root systems. This is a display of cabbage and carrots. Cabbage has a branching root system. Carrots have a single large taproot. These root systems do not compete with one another, so planting cabbage and carrots thickly together will produce a weed suppressant environment in the soil. This means that weeds will not grow where the root system is of the plants that are growing around completely takes up all the space in the soil. This is one way that permaculture gets around having to weed or use herbicides. In conventional industrialized agriculture, you have monocultures, which are huge fields of one crop all growing alongside of one another, and you have weeds that come up because they can take advantage of the unused soil space. Permaculture hates monocultures. As diverse an amount of plants as can be grown in one space should be grown in that space. You don't have to have any fear of planting things too closely together as long as you choose the root systems of the plants carefully enough that they won't compete with one another. Carrots, cabbage, and onions is a great three-plant polyculture that can be planted together. Another one that a lot of people are familiar with is the three sisters of corn, beans, and squash, which aside from being like this really ancient polyculture, also has a lot of great benefits to the soil. Beans are a nitrogen fixer, and corn draws very heavily on nitrogen from the soil. So they complement one another and provide one another with the nutrients that they both need to survive. And squash vines out underneath both of these plants and suppresses weeds. They send out very thick networks of vines and suppresses weeds, and also crowds out pests that would try to eat the beans and the corn, particularly raccoons. Raccoons have very sensitive palms. They don't like to walk over top of squash vines. If you plant a thick carpet of squash in your corn patch, you won't have a problem with raccoons trying to eat your corn. It's common sense, but a lot of people don't know this, and they use these have-a-heart traps to try and trap their raccoons. It's not necessary. It's extra added labor that takes time away from other things that you could be doing that are more fun than trying to trap raccoons. Permaculture tries to design systems that are solve all of the problems and serve all of the functions that are necessary to keep the system going with a very minimal amount of input. And that's where the compost aspect of permaculture comes into play.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can get in it. Yeah. All right.
Permaculture does not use artificial composts. It does not use chemical fertilizers at all. If you have even a small amount of space in your backyard, you can start a compost pile. A compost bin with a locking lid is legal to use in pretty much every municipality A lot of municipalities have policies about backyard compost and how it smells and attracts animals. A closed-up compost pile with a locking lid is totally okay to use in every municipality that I'm aware of. And you can gather all of the compost that you need to grow your own food in your own garden in your own backyard just through composting all of the kitchen scraps and waste from your own household. It's totally possible if you're do enough preparation beforehand and really strive to have 100% composting rate of like throwing no food waste into the garbage whatsoever. You can gather enough compost to grow your own garden. Composting creates a closed loop system. Food waste goes back into the soil, composted down, grows more food. It's ingenious, really. A lot of people don't realize it, but when you create a closed loop system, you eliminate waste and you basically reduce the amount of labor you need to put into your garden really dramatically, and it's just really fun too. I mean, composting is fun. Just watching this food waste that you throw into this little bucket just compost down and turns into soil, and it's a great low labor way of closing the loop and growing food. It's not necessary to put worms in a compost pile because the compost will attract the worms on its own. The worms will find their new source of food. They'll come up through the soil, get into the compost, and if you live in a sort of suburban area, you just put your compost down so that it's right on the bare soil, not with like a plastic tarp underneath it. The worms will climb up through the soil into the compost and start eating the compost and actually help it to compost down more quickly. And if you want to get some worms and put them in your compost and speed that process up, that's great. We can always use more worms in the soil. They're an incredibly beneficial animal to have in your little home environment, but you don't need to because they'll find your compost on their own.
We're here today with the Livable Streets, kind of talking about how we can make our roadways pedestrian bicycle friendly, and we have a couple different examples of how to basically create physically separated spaces to allow bicyclists to feel safer as they're traveling in traffic. So we have Jerry here on the bicycle kind of demonstrating some of these types of elements, including having these piping systems and these landscape features that kind of physically separate the bicyclists from the motor vehicle traffic.
I'm riding this bicycle to get people to talk about how to improve the planet and diminish the carbon footprint. And you could go to 350.org to learn more about it. And ideally, we're getting people to talk more about livable streets. So we could ride our bicycles and feel safe riding our bicycles, maybe have it separated by plants and trees so it's pretty and more livable. Yeah, we're really excited about it. And maybe we could talk about it at the Community Conversations. It's the second Wednesday of each month at the Elliott Street Cafe.
I guess we're going to get started. Thank you for Jessica Tanner. Is she here for organizing this event? And a shout out to 350.org that's got 7,000 some events happening all around the world, and this is one of them here in Brattleboro, and that we're celebrating with all the cars driving through here. But thanks people for coming out, and we hope a lot of people will see this on Brattleboro TV that's here today. And we've got some special guests here to speak. Casey Golden from Climate Solutions in Seattle, and I'm John Ungerleider, and this is Bill Conley, and we're going to do, thank you, we're going to do a few songs from something we wrote that's called a co-opera that we're going to do October 30th right over there at the River Garden. So the end of the month, which is a musical about global warming, but it encourages audience to really think about how we can all respond to this and what the challenges are. So this So our journey towards this co-opera started with KC here, who went to Copenhagen for the big conference last year, the COP16, and really saying we have to be not in the third person watching and saying, well, what's going to happen, but be in the first person and thinking, well, what are we going to do about it? So all I could think to do was to write a song about that, and we recorded a little song that some people listened to over there through the miracle of the internet, and that'll kick off these series of songs that we'll do.
What's this one called, John?
Well, it's Copenhagen, Secret of the Seasons. The Copenhagen theme. Well, it still feels like my home when the leaves don't turn to red and gold, and the ice doesn't cover the fishing hole. Blowing snows won't follow anymore. So I go to Copenhagen, where the winter winds blow cold, and try to save the secrets of the snow. Let's meet in Copenhagen. We all know the reason, to try to save the secret of the season. Well, it still feels like my home. Crocuses are not peeking out of the mud when the rains have come. Light up the trees with soft green buds of spring. So I go to Copenhagen, where the winter winds blow cold, and try to save the secrets of the snow. Let's meet in Copenhagen. We all know the reason, to try to save the secrets of the season. Well, it still feels like my home when it's too warm for this time of year. I remember what it used to feel like here. Summer sun made the crops appear everywhere. Never thought it all could disappear. Let's meet in Copenhagen. We all know the reason, to try and save the secret of the season. Try and save the secret of the season. Save the secret of the season. Thank you. So, just while we're thinking about the next song, the way the co-opera works is to just think about things that you've noticed changing in the season. And maybe just take 1 second and turn to a person next to you and mention one thing that you might have noticed that's different in the season, this season, the colors, the fall, and then we'll start into our next song.
Oh, my. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Come back.
Now, Bill here's noticed some strange changes around his house, and he wrote a song about it. It's quite dramatically different up there in Dummerston. We were up there this morning.
Yeah, up on the hill. And, you know, down here in the valley, things are a little bit warmer. But even up in my house, at about 1,000 feet, I don't know, it used to be colder and things have changed a little bit. So this song is about some of the possibilities of change that aren't so positive, but could be. And it's called, I forget what it's called.
Oceanfront Property.
Oceanfront Property is the name of it. to live in the mountain, but now I live by the sea. Oh no, but I never left my mountain home. The ocean came to me. That's because everybody, almost everybody, is driving in an SUV. I never knew nothing about real estate, but now I've got oceanfront property. I used to have to shovel out my driveway. Now I've got all the sand that I need. My prize crop of raspberries is now a bed of seaweed. That's because everybody, almost everybody, is driving an SUV. I never knew nothing about real estate, but now I've got oceanfront property. Take it away, John. Because everybody, almost everybody, very nice, is driving in an SUV. I never knew nothing about real estate, but now I got oceanfront property. Now don't get me wrong, it's not the way I like it. I used to ride around on my skis. Climate change might be cool, but we can't afford to spike it. So do your part, I'm begging you, please. Yeah. I used to live in the mountains, but now I live by the sea. Oh no, I never left my mountain home. The ocean came to me. That's because everybody, almost everybody, is driving in an SUV. I never knew nothing about real estate. Now I got oceanfront. I've got oceanfront. I've got oceanfront property.
Thank you, Bill. So we've noticed some of the changes too are getting more serious, and we've seen the extreme weather this year, the drought, and then the flooding. And this little song about those changes that are happening, you know, even worse all over the world. You think of Pakistan and with the floods, and Russia with the incredible drought this year.
Yes.
Just wait for that motorcycle to go by, and then, oh, maybe I'll 20 of them. On this land since back before anyone knows their great-great-grandparents were born. You've seen the storms rise when the cool summers turn, see the squalls coming in from the north. Every day I walk out by the seawall and watch the seabirds and dolphins dive low. I've noticed the tides flowing higher and higher, till this year they were kissing my toes. And it's roll, boys, roll. I've never seen waves like that coming over the shores. Roll, boys, roll. 6 meters high, heading straight for our home. This last October I woke to a wind that made such a terrible moan. The bare trees were shaking, sea spray horizontal blew right through the back door. I woke up the children and called to my neighbors, make ready to load up the skiffs. I've lived 60 seasons, heard enough tales to know we've not seen a storm such as this. And it's roll, boys, roll. Never seen steam like that coming over the shores. Roll, boys, roll. 'Cause they're 6 meters high, heading straight for our home. We are migrating with all who survive. I hope they'll take in refugees, 'cause they can't go back to the islands no longer and rebuild to the storms such as these. And it's roll, boys, roll. Never seen waves like that coming over the shores. Roll, boys, roll. 'Cause they're 6 meters high, heading straight for our homes. Roll, boys, roll. Okay, well, Casey. So right now we'd like to bring up Casey Golden, who we're very lucky to have out here from Seattle in Brattleboro. And Casey's the policy director of Climate Solutions and has been working on this issue probably as long as just about anybody in the country. So really lucky to get some of his words out for us here in Brattleboro. Casey.
This one here? Yeah. Sunnier over here. Hi everybody. I'm the roadie. They told me I could use the microphone if I carried some of the instruments down here, so that's how I got here. This is a pretty laid-back revolution right here, and when you ask folks to imagine something that's different about the seasons and the weather, people were basking on the benches over here and saying, well, it's perfect. And I say that because I've been in Brattleboro for a couple of days now, and I sometimes try to put myself into the future and imagine back to what it's going to feel like and what we would have done on the way to actually solving global warming, and what it's going to feel like to live in the world where we did it. And when I do that, images of Brattleboro are a lot of what kind of populates my thoughts and my mind. And the last 2 days here has really reinforced that. It's just such an amazing, tight, responsible, centered, warm community. You know, we went to the farmers market yesterday. Fantastic stuff going on with local agriculture. Warm community sense among the people there. We went to the Empty Bowl event that Elizabeth helped organize. You know, just a real sense of people in the community stepping up to our future, stepping up to our responsibility to each other, stepping up to nature and our responsibility to our kids. And so much of what I feel and experience when I'm here in Brattleboro is kind of my image, my imagination of what the world's going to feel like when we actually really step up to this challenge. And it's just so fun, so great to be here among all the places in the world where people are celebrating and digging in and making climate solutions happen today. It's so great to be in this special place on Earth. It really is terrific. It is true, though, that there are some places where this isn't happening. There are some places still on Earth where people are not really fully mobilized for climate solutions and to make a better world. And I have to, sadly, report a little bit of bad news from the internet today about what's going on in the world and some of the gaps in the world when it comes to people's commitment to climate solutions in a better world. And so I read on the internet today that in Equatorial Guinea, there are no 10-10-10 events today, no climate solutions events, none at all in the whole country. In San Marino, nothing, no climate solutions events at all, no mobilization for climate solutions. And in North Korea, no climate solutions at all, no mobilization for climate solutions. So that's the bad news. The good news is, in every single other country on the face of the planet today, at 7,347 events, 2,000 events in the United States, 850 campuses across the world, people are digging in for climate solutions. They're doing global work party events that are perfect for their community, right? As a global revolution, it looks a little disaggregated, a little disorganized, a little distributed, but what they're doing in their communities is perfect for their communities. It's what climate solutions looks like in their communities. It's what you're doing here with 350.org. It's what you're doing here with permaculture and composting, what you were doing yesterday at the farmers market, what you were doing at the Empty Bowls event. And it's happening today in 7,347 places. It's an amazing thing, it really is. It's particularly heartening to me because I've been to, as John said, I was in Copenhagen for the international negotiations. I spent the last year working in the United States Senate, and I've, let's just say I've had more than my fair share of experiences of our institutions at the national and international level and our leaders not getting it done, not stepping up to the plate, not committing themselves to solutions the way citizens are in 7,347 events as we speak. And it's disappointing and it's frustrating, but I got to tell you what pulls us through those moments. You know, these guys came through Copenhagen too, believe me, literally and figuratively. Every day we were hearing a lot of loud noise, a lot of resistance, a lot of problems on the way to climate solutions. But when John sent that song, it was about 2 days into it. They put it, Amy Goodman put it right on the soundtrack to her show. We plugged it in for her in a little thumb drive into her computer and played it for her right on the spot. She said, sweet, I'll put it on the show right away. When that song came in, and I knew it was from here, I knew it was from this community, I knew it was from you, John, that put new energy into the whole thing. And over the many years that I've been working on this issue, and you might say I'm kind of a little slow to be kind of making progress on this, the things that really give me hope, the things that really keep me going, the things that make me know and believe that we are going to live in that place someday, are the kind of events that are happening all across the country right now. And that kind of song and biopower. We're all biopower. Look, they're carpooling. The hope is coming from you. And I also got a message today, I probably won't find it on here and I can't see the damn thing anyway, but okay, here we go. From the UN climate chief, Christina Figueres, who the nations of the world are meeting today in Tianjin, China, preparing for the next round of international negotiations. And she sent a message saying, I want to offer my personal support to the Global Work Party. When citizens are inspired to take action, it is easier for governments to initiate real climate change actions. That's sort of in the soft, careful language of UN diplomatic speak. What she's really doing is calling on you for help, because she knows that the countries of the world and the national governments and the big institutions cannot get this done against the tide of resistance from the coal and oil industries and business as usual without the help of people all over the world organizing themselves in small groups in their communities, but insistently. Yes, doing your solutions in your community. Yes, picking up your shovel and doing the work. But then picking up your cell phone and calling your elected leaders and telling them that when they walk away from the climate bill in Congress, you're not going to take no for an answer. That was the wrong answer they gave you, and you're going to keep coming back until they give you the right answer. That's what it's going to take, and the UN climate chief is saying she can't get her work done unless we do that. You know, I think we all had a moment in 2008 after the election, a lot of us did, I know I did, that felt like the ascendance of hope in American politics for the first time. We were all so excited, and we all I don't know. I'm looking at you guys. I know you were probably mostly the type that cried after the election. I wept like a baby after the election. My daughter's there, and the kids were saying, like, what's wrong with when are they going to stop? Get a hanky, for crying out loud. You guys are a mess. But that's what it felt like after the election. I know a lot of people felt that incredible sense of hope. And it wasn't just about the candidates. It wasn't mostly about the candidates. It was about us. We are what propelled them to that hopeful moment. We are what made Obama possible. But then after the election, we sort of started sitting back into the third-person role a little bit, right? We started to be spectators and say, wow, I hope it goes okay. Oh, it's not going so good for Obama now. What's Congress doing now? And we started to get a little bit more backed away from it and watching it instead of driving it the way we did till that moment in 2008. We got to keep driving it. Obama can't do it for us. The UN can't do it for us. Congress can't do it for us. We have to keep driving it in our communities. We have to not take no for an answer. We have to get all over our elected leaders, because this is 10-10-10. We're going to work. We need to tell them to get to work in exactly the same kind of way. That's what this day is about. I thank you for being Brattleboro. I thank you for letting me be part of Brattleboro and be part of this day.
Thank you, Casey. And Casey's inspired me and so many other people to work on this issue. And we're getting close to 3:50 in the afternoon, which is sort of when the clock strikes, whatever, 3:50 on this issue. And so we're going to just do a couple more songs from the end of this day. About from the show, and we also have Tim Mayo here, who's I want to get him up between the songs to do one of his poems about this wonderful autumn season, and Tim's part of the show too. Again, the co-opera Secret of the Seasons, which will be October 30th at the River Garden in Brattleboro.
As we're tuning up, this is another of John's songs that relates in the sense that we all try the best we can to reduce our carbon footprint, and then there are some times when no matter how much we try, we find ourselves in our car when we might have been able to walk, or and then we find that sometimes like just the act of driving, and sometimes is fun. So growing up in LA as John did, which was maybe even more car dependent than Vermont, I'm not sure, but this song has to do with kind of the guilty pleasure of being in your car when you know there's other alternatives.
So it's hard to change who we are because we're tied into this. Kick us off.
Traffic is moving, how I love to ride, ride, ride. Is my car who I am? Is my car who I am? One summer I worked in Walt's service station. You should see those LA women drive by, it's no lie. I'd fill up Jermaine Jackson's Corvette and dream that I would climb inside. And we'd go riding through the canyons, over the mountain to the Hollywood side. No matter where we go, what we try, the truth is we just love to ride, 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 ride. How can I explain that I love the freeway? How can I explain that I love the freeway? 10 lanes from side to side when the traffic is moving. How I love to ride.
And now we'll get Tim Mayo up to do his song about his poem about autumn, and then we'll do one more song to wrap up the day.
This is actually not my poem, but John Keats's, and it's his ode to autumn. And I guess the thing to think about is some of the things that are happening in Keats's poem may not happen in the future. To autumn. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatched eaves run, to bend with apples in the moss cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, and until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy shells. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath in all its twined flowers. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press. With patient look thou watchest the last oozings hour by hour. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river's sallow, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. And full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne, hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the red-breasted whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the sky.
Thank you, Tim Mayo. Isn't Tim the poet laureate of Brattleboro? I think so. So thanks again to Jessica Tanner for organizing today, in the back. And after this song, it'd be great if we get everybody up in front to take a picture with the 350 photo that's going to go on the 350.org website, and of course, you know, organized by here in Vermont by our own Bill McKibben. Thanks for Casey Golden and coming out from Seattle to give us the inspiring words, which we can watch again and again on Brattleboro TV. Thanks for covering this, and thanks for Tim Mayo for his poem. And this is Bill Conley, and I'm John Ungerleider, and we'll be doing a co-opera over there on this subject, a little musical on October 30th at the River Garden. So come on down and see all the songs, and with full electric production. Now this is a little waltz about some of the alternative technology we need to develop. And here in Vermont, we've had a hard time developing wind power, but needs a little public image turnaround. So hopefully this song will help us see what's positive about wind power.
Oh, what a thrill to drive over the hills when the windmills come up in your eyes. Like a moon on the rise, watch the blades softly glide over the green countryside. Windmill, bring me around. Windmill, bring me around. Like a dream of old Holland, we can ice skate through town. Blustery weather is fine, gusty conditions just right. Like the
can sing along or make wind noises if you want. Windmill, bring me around. Windmill, bring me around. Windmill, bring me around. Now this is the Cape Wind Project in Massachusetts, right next to us. To walk out on the beach, feel the breeze from the sea, making the turbine spin. Energy free from the soot and the heat. Maybe we still might win. Windmill, bring me around. Windmill, bring me around. Like a dream of old autumn, we can escape through time. Blustery weather is fine. Gusty conditions just right. Like the story of the Dutch boy with his finger in the dye, we still might hold back the tide. Windmill, bring me around. Windmill, bring me around. One more time. Windmill, bring me around. Thank you, everybody. Let's get everybody up here for a photo for the website. It's going to go all around the world.
I was just going to save it. Other people can send photos too. Hey, if anybody else was taking photos out there and wants to submit them to 350.org, you just do an email that says photos@350.org, and in the subject line put Brattleboro, USA, and then anything you put in the email will be the caption. And go to the site and check out all the other emails and pictures from all over the world.
Everybody get a sign? Okay, we need 4 people to hold them.
More signs. We got a few more signs.
That's really good. All right, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Now. Very good. Very cool. Right. Great group.
We should say 350.
350. Well, it still feels like my home when the leaves don't turn to red and gold and the ice doesn't cover the fishing hole. Blowing snows won't follow anymore. So I go to Copenhagen where the winter winds blow cold. Try to save the secrets of the snow. Let's meet in Copenhagen. We all know the reason. Try to save the secret of the season. Well, it still feels